Hey everyone, welcome back to Classic DM. This is our second season of episodes where we're going to be taking on, our party's going to be taking on Module G2 from the Classic TSR original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons campaign in Greyhawk, the Glacial Rift of the Frost Giant Jarl. Now, this first episode is going to be a really short, brief one because it's going to kind of recap everything that happened in Season 1 to get you what's happening here in this location, talk about the location, introduce you to the main core cast of 7 characters, and that kind of detail. So if you're just picking up on the show a little late, watching this episode is a good way to kind of get caught up to speed pretty quickly. And we also have other episodes that go into more detail that really recap everything if you want to see every single fine-tuned point. So to kick things off right away, we're definitely going to be doing this baby right here. And this is probably one of the very original campaigns I ever went through way back in 1978. This is the cover art from the original G2 module itself. I remember a group of friends and I were playing this. A friend was DMing it. I was a player at the time, and we had gone through the steading of the Hill Giant Chief with one buddy in the neighborhood, and another buddy in the neighborhood ran this one, and another buddy bought the third one. I actually ran G3 as a DM, which is my first time GM in something that was high level. Prior to that, I only done like Search of the Unknown and Village of Hamlet and some of the other low level junk. So let's get right into the storyline, and then we'll start talking about the location. So the core storyline of the whole series, from the very beginning, was very different than the original. In the original series, Gary Gygax and the guys put together this foundation for a DM to go in there and create their own story, plot line, details. They kind of had the story of like, giants are raiding, go stop them, use any means necessary. So I decided to take this a step further. I've always loved Darlene's map of Greyhawk. And what I decided to do was kind of develop the storyline around 2 nations, one of them being Ket and the other one being the Tiger Nomads. Now, if you know your Western Greyhawk geography, you might get excited to hear that the entire campaign for the G1, 2, and 3 is set in the Yatil Mountains, which is a big, beautiful, long stretch of mountains that kind of divides that whole part of the map. So we're not down the Hell Furnaces, we're not way down there in the liberation of Jeff or whatever the hell you want to call it. But what we're doing instead is we've got a storyline that's based upon 2 families. Let's gotta love this kind of stuff. Thanks for the notification windows. The hang on, what the devil? Get out of my face. Where was I? Okay, anyway, so what we have is a situation where 2 families have joined in a marriage. Princess Mar from the Tiger Nomads fell in love with Prince Aiden, who's from Ket. Now, Ket is kind of like a feudalism period French Renaissance type of kingdom in my world. The Tiger Nomads very similar to what you might see with Genghis Khan and Mongolian Empire. So with a little bit more emphasis on animals in the animal kingdom. So you have a very civilized, upright, proper, noble, scholarly nation that's joined forces with a down-to-earth, gritty, live-off-the-land, steppes roaming nomad kind of a nation. So that marriage happened, and their firstborn child really ties the 2 countries together. In this time frame in the game world, having siblings and brothers and sisters and nobility is how you keep your lineage going. So when their firstborn child is abducted, it's kind of like all hands on deck situation. So, the child is abducted from Molvar in Ket, and a massive search with all the military is sent out. They find a number of clues, and Prince Aiden recruits some of his siblings, his sister and 2 sisters and a brother, and Princess Mara recruits 2 of her brothers and sisters as well to help. So there's a party of 7. So you have 4 Tiger Nomads, the Bekalunish, and then you have 3 high-level characters from Ket who are siblings of Prince Aiden. So they track down the abductors to a mixture of drow and hill giants, and the party hits on the steading of the Hill Giant Chief. So along the way, they discover a number of clues, and one of the really hot topic clues that no one was really surprised if you know the original story was they found a drow map using the letter E, which is for the House Elserv, which you probably know if you know your lore pretty well. And in my campaign, I do these little chicken scratch type maps and drawings to kind of flesh things out, give you more material type of components for your players to look at. And in this situation, they have this drow writing that they can't really decipher. They can decipher like a couple of nouns and verbs with this sketch of this rift. And a number of the Tiger Nomad kids, well, I'll call them kids all the time, they know this area. This is a part of the Yatil Mountains that's to the west one of Lake Quag that's over in that region. So when Lake Quag would freeze over, frost giants would come raiding down towards the east and raid all the human time kind of locations. So they determined that, hey, we know where this is, but they decided not to go immediately here because they find this map in the steading of the hill giant chief. They continue to search for this stolen or abducted child in the complex and be absolutely sure it's not there first. So they suspect that the child's being moved and that the hill giants are being used as lackeys. And when they discover this letter, it gives them a lot more information to go with. And in this drow letter, using the House I'll Serve moniker once again in the upper left-hand corner here, and a lot of drow writing, they discovered this symbol here, this infinity symbol, which is what they call the infinity chain. There's actually an entire tail end of an episode from last season and that details how they found it and discovered it. Now, in the original module, if you're a DM, there's like a magical chain is all it's really talks about, and there's connectivity to the drow. We all know about the vault of the drow and all that stuff, but it's not as ingrained. And so what we're trying to do here with this series is really kind of make you feel like a detective hot on the heels of the villains. And so with this letter, which is instructions that was in a cloud giant pack, they decipher it to mean that, you know, these symbols here, which are circled in graphite, meaning that, you know, do not kill the child, this big underlined statement here, and they have symbols of drow providing a sacrifice, these little hieroglyphs here kind of representing like someone giving a sacrifice to Lolth. So it sounds like, and what they deduce, the party deduces after a lot of leadership charisma rolls, that the drow have captured this child and they're going to sacrifice it. Now, the motivation behind that is unknown. That is a mystery. Something is significant behind the scenes to warrant that type of a risk, to have a raiding party come out at night and have drow orchestrate stuff with hill giants and have cloud giants and storm giants, and as we're just about to find out in this module, frost giants involved, and we all know where it goes from there. So there's some of the basic core storyline of the whole series that I've tried to flesh out in greater detail. So our party, as you see here on the right, at these hills that are located called the Tuscan Hills, which are between the nation of Tusmet and Ket, is where the steading of the hill giant chief, this little brown khaki sienna area. So the party just spent like 8 episodes completely wiping the floor with this place. They did a really good job. You can see from the background image on the left with just a shot of some of the tokens that we made for the episode and all the character sheets and all the dice and stuff, and lots of hand-drawn maps. I just have done like maybe 60 hand-drawn maps overall for that one. And we'll keep the hand-drawn map method going, which is really a lot of fun. A lot of cool character development happened. The characters from Ket kind of came out on their own, and some of that stuff's improvised on the spot. Some of it's pre-planned a little bit by me. And the player's actions, which in this case is completely being controlled by me, is unknown. And a lot of times roles will determine how things are shaping up. So at the end of at the last episode, last season, I guess you could call it, the episode for G1, the party used this infinity chain and magically transport themselves to a frozen cavern right outside this glacial rift. And so the party knows for a fact, after setting up camp and investigating, that this is where they really are. And this is a classic photograph or picture or print from the back of the original module. These things cost like $4.99 when I was a kid, like 13 years old. And if you look at it carefully, let's talk about some details here. This is kind of a picture looking north, if you think about it. And in the lower right-hand corner, we have this like frozen, well-worn path. And then we have this really deep rift. Now, it's not a lake. It's not like a canyon lake or something like you might see in the United States or anywhere. The bottom is a frozen lake. And so this is a frozen lake that's frozen year-round. So it's probably 10 feet thick of ice. Around the perimeter are these massive, tall ledges. And these things are 250, 150 feet tall. So there's pathways that kind of dip down like a quarry. If you've ever seen a quarry before, these paths kind of weave through the mountains, and there's this massive tear in the landscape that's filled itself with water and frozen. It's like a glacial rift, basically, literally. And the party has used a cavern back here, and they're going to work their way this way. So let's just pop over to our webcam real quick, and let's take a look at the map in a little bit more detail, and see if we can give you some more information about that before we get things into going too much further. So what do we got here? So we need some more light, right? Let's get some more light going. So we got a map here, a little chicken scratch map we put together, and get some more light going. There you go. So as always with these adventures, north is going to be to the top. For me, I'm seeing it from the west side. And then we're just going to mark on top of this because we've got glass here, so we can mark and draw on top of it and do whatever we want to do. So this is kind of a chicken scratch version of the map. of the actual rift itself. So if the party is coming in from here, they're this is the north. The steading of the hill giant chief was way down that way. So you have this way is east, and Lake Quag is way off that way, and way over this way is where Tusmet and the western kingdoms of Greyhawk would be. So when they're teleported here, they end up actually on the north side, not the south side, like I said a few minutes ago, the north side of the glacial rift, and they're going to work their way this way. Now, some initial scouting that happens reveals that there's these two frozen paths that branch. One goes left and one goes right. So the party kind of got together and decided which way to explore first, and what they decided to do was to explore this easternmost path first and head down this way. The reason for that being is just as essence like go left or go right. Some of the clues they had previously gave them some more tips. So let's pull the camera out a little bit and let you get a better shot. Let's talk about this rift a little bit because it's kind of interesting. And then here's just another quick little sketch we put together. And I'm going to pull this down to here. So as you can see the similarity between the rift and the sketch that was done. So the sketch is almost as if it's drawn from the southeast. So the dotted line of the path on the sketch ends up lining up with the path, as if that path, in the sketch, that path would have been like this, right? It would have been coming around like this, and it was showing all kinds of mountains like that in the sketch, right? So here's your little frozen mountains, and the path comes here. So this is the part I was showing. This is an entry point. So let's take a section through here, if you know what a section is. Let's take a section right through one of these and talk about this over here. So at the highest peak, this is 250 feet. Now remember, 300 feet is the length of an American United States college or professional football field. So this is almost 100 yards tall. You know, this is like, whatever, 75 yards tall. If this is the size of a character with a little shield and a spear on their back. And then you've got these this little narrow little lip that's covered with ice and snow, and they undulate up and down, and it's very hard to see. The entire area is completely covered with snow. It's nighttime, which is a key point, so only have a little bit of silver crescent moonlight happening. You have it intermittently snowing. It's not a blizzard, so you don't have this howling wind like in the scene from The Lord of the Rings, but you do have snow coming down. You do have frozen ice. It's frozen up here all year round, and these marks here, because we'll pop back to this map from time to time, are cave entrances. So let's just zoom back in to our overall location map, and then what we'll do then is we'll get into some of the then we'll end the episode, and then we'll go back to gameplay and have the player actions happen right after that. So this is a cave entrance. This is a cave entrance. Cave entrance. Cave entrance. Cave entrance. Cave entrance. Here. It's almost like here's one here, and here. Then there's some kind of like frozen dome here, and this is here, and another one here. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20 major cave entrances. And each one of these things is going to be like 35 to 45 feet tall. So the scale on this map, this is not to the same scale as a grid. I mean, usually on a battle map grid, this is a 5-inch. This is a 1-inch square, right? So all our little tokens that we use in the game, like for example, just put Mercedes down, right? So this is the scale that we use for the characters. So we make the actual maps, they're going to be at a different scale. But this rift is so huge, it's really important to get a sense of how huge and massive it is. So with that being said, our party's going to begin their adventure by moving down this first sloping frozen upper ledge, and this is a 250-foot drop off right here, just like we did in the other sketch. So they're not going to try to do any kind of rappelling. They're not going to try and work their way drop down into the flat frozen lake bed where there's lots of rocks and glaciers and stuff sticking up there. It looks like, when you have a glacier in the United States, it moves and rips through the terrain, but in this situation it's just been in this one position forever. So there's massive rocks. Maybe at one point, millions of years ago, it was an actual cave. So what they decided to do is they're going to move down south and start investigating the area. Now the goal is again to catch up to, recover, and rescue the child. Their goal is not to kill every single frost giant in the entire world. Their goal is not to change the religion of the drow elves or anything like that. All they care about is rescuing this child. These are siblings. So you're talking about brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, and they're going after to protect their niece here, right? So that gives you a quick overview of the location and some of the motivations and some of the storyline elements. If you really like the basic setup of things, I encourage you to go back and check out some of the previous season episodes that were done over the month of October, pretty much, and September. Let's talk about the characters, because some of these things, one character leveled up since the last episode, and we're just going to pull this off of here. Let's get this out of the way here. And let's go through the characters. This is just take us maybe like another 10 minutes at the most, and we'll be done. So Mercedes is the Ket leader. She's a level 12 fighter. Uses the Zweihander, which is a two-handed sword, heavy plate wearer. She's not afraid of anything. She likes to call the shots. She has high charisma. She's completely convinced that it is her personal goal, it is her personal responsibility or duty to rescue the child, and that all decisions should go through her. So you hear me joke around and call her Bossy Boots a lot. So there'll be a lot of situations in the game where a conflict happens where she wants to do something that seems maybe a little rash, a little swing a sword first, ask questions later. But that's her personality. It's really evolving. She's been made good decisions so far, but there have been situations where she's like, kick the door and let's just charge forward. So in the front lines with her is the Tiger Nomad Zolaris. Now Zolaris uses a burning glaive, and this is like a two-handed polearm with a huge slicing weapon on the end of it like an axe. And this has got a fire enchantment on it that does additional 1d8 burning dot damage for 3 rounds after each hit. So Zolaris is quiet. Zolaris does not run around challenging authority. He doesn't have the highest intelligence and wisdom in the world. He just listens carefully and does what his siblings say. And if it's a time to attack, it's time to attack. It's almost, if you imagine the original spirit of Conan in the Robert E. Howard books, Zolaris is a quieter version of Conan. King Conan was pretty confident and outspoken, but so Zolaris is a good, solid DPSer, if you know what I mean. So then we get to Eliphanisi. Eliphanisi is the youngest sister of Princess Mara, who's a level 10 monk. And a monk from the Tiger Nomads is the purest form of fighting possible. She doesn't wear any armor. All her armor comes from her skills. She primarily uses open hand attacks. Her open hand stuns have been instrumental in stopping runners and had changed the tides of certain battles, but she's low health and she's low armor class. And she does have a magic item that she has not used. It's a Ring of Elemental Command for the Spirit of Earth. That gives her the ability to do things like Stone Tail once per day, Pass Wall twice per day, Wall of Stone once per day, Stone to Flesh twice per week, Move Earth once per week, and Featherfall. She has 5 potions of extra healing, which are 3d8 plus 3, but Eliphanisi does not use any of this stuff. She does have a really beautiful Bastion of Night staff as well, but most of her stuff has been the DPSer that kind of comes in, hides in shadows, acts like a rogue, and then attacks from behind, but she doesn't do backstab damage. So she's got herself in trouble a few times, has had some pretty epic fail rolls, but she also, last episode or two, she did a fantastic job of wiping out a bunch of running hobgoblins. Her older brother is Varinjar. Varinjar leveled up. He's level 11 assassin. This guy is just a straightforward, good old-fashioned, super strong, powerful, dual-wielding DPS machine. No questions asked. As an assassin, he's a quad surprise back damage dealer. He gained enough experience to get to the next level. One thing you may notice at the bottom of the character sheets, I've updated them all with their experience. I went through and calculated the experience for the entire module. That's how I like to do it. I don't like to do experience on a per session basis because it's much more exciting to figure out what the big payoff is at the end. So with Varinjar, he went up a level, which mostly just boosted his health a little bit by about 10, and gave him a little bit better of some of the thief abilities, but they were very high in the first place. So he hasn't collected any magic items or anything else changed about him. He just gets a little bit better health, tiny little bit better. His sister is Felcherna. Felcherna is a Tiger Nomad Druid. Felcherna's been kind of the intelligent leader from the Tiger Nomad side. She's always been the one that suggests what we should do next. I think we should do this. And there's been situations where she and Mercedes have argued. Now, not in a violent way, but they've discussed like what we should do, why we should do this, and the party has had to decide whose path to follow. Now, since she's a true neutral druid, if the outspoken Ket warrior leader gal wins the fight, she's not upset by it. Her charisma is slightly lower than Mercedes, but she isn't affected by those kinds of things. She's very stoic. She's pulled out some pretty epic stuff in the previous adventure. There was one situation where the hallway is getting flooded with stone giants, and she did an animal summoned wild horses that just stampeded most of them down and pushed them into the following corridor, and the party was able to get out of a room they're almost trapped in. So she's pulled off some pretty amazing stuff. As a druid, we keep her by the book. She's disgusted by the mistreatment of animals. She tries to communicate with animals. Her younger sister, remember, is a monk. If you haven't played one before, monks have the natural ability to speak with animals and plants. Now, this hasn't been used a lot. It's been used a little bit. There was a situation in the studying the Hill Giant chief where they befriended a cave bear that was a pet of one of the visiting sub-chiefs or something along those lines. I can't remember who owned it. And it really gave them a lot of information about where they were and who was here and all that. So She's a very by-the-book druid. She's not one of these nuker caster druids that stands in the back trying to do call lightning all the time. Most of her situations have been a couple of heals here and there. Nothing too incredibly hard. Now, G2 is much harder than G1. So the usage of magic items like Eliphanesi's Elemental Command of Earth is going to come into play, and the druid's going to have to do a lot more than she did previously, especially with Winter Wolves in the midst. Next, we have a Ket High Priestess named Antola. Antola is heavily armored, shield, flail, plate mail, healing machine. That's all he does. He just protects his siblings. He's the older brother of the other Ket. He's the oldest of all the Ket siblings. A good, solid cleric in the group. You always got to have one of those. He rarely gets hit. He doesn't really engage in melee much. So a good, reliable, solid cleric, the anchor of any party. And pulling up the rear guard is the second youngest sister, the Tiger Nomads, which is Obscura, and she's a level 11 illusionist. She has a beautiful artifact called the Staff of Storms, which allows her to do Ice Storm 5 times a day, which is 5d10 plus times 3, pretty nasty damage for 3 rounds. She has some pretty nice magic items. She has done a few on-the-spot heroic things. She did an illusion of a Drow Priestess once that really kind of tied up a bunch of ogres in the big battle in the steading of the Hill Giant Chief when they were in the Great Hall, the big feasting hall. They just charged in their front door. There must have been 25 things on the screen. You should go check that episode out. It was hilarious. She's used her abilities when they really, really, really need to be used. So she's sitting in the back. She's very intelligent. She uses her intelligence and savvy and scholarliness. Excuse me, she's not a Tiger Nomad. She's a Ket girl. So she has done things like Phantasmal Killer and Hypnotic Pattern a couple of times, but so far she hasn't been pressed to do anything too much. She's done Darkness and Blindness and things of that nature. So overall, it's been a melee-centric melee train. We've seen the warriors up on the front lines. We've seen the monk and the assassins hide in shadows. We've seen the druid and the cleric and the illusionist keep the back lines. There hasn't been a situation where there's been a lot of AoE. With Frost Giants, it's going to be interesting because the Staff of Storms is not going to be as effective against some of the Frost Giants. We'll to see how the tactics play out. There's not going to be a lot of animals in the Animal Kingdom to summon, except for maybe Woolly Mammoths. She has a higher version of one of her spells that allows her to summon Woolly Mammoths. So overall, it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. And that gives us a quick overview of where we are, how we got here, and what's up next. So our next episode, we'll get into actual gameplay later this evening, and we hope you tune in then. And as always, if you follow on Twitch or on Twitter, you can find out when shows go live immediately. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you real soon at the next episode.